Hello, guys. Welcome to another exciting episode on Pious Football, where we discuss the latest in transfer news, pertinent issues surrounding football that you don't hear on mainstream European media, and also tactical analysis of games. Now, I'm going to start today. I'm going to do a flurry of transfer news before I go to the main subject for this episode. News coming in from Liverpool is that Jordan Henderson's contract offer that was tabled to him by Saudi club Al Ittifaq worth £700,000 a week. I told you in the previous episode it was going to be very tempting to turn down. Now it shows that the Saudi Pro League are really headstrong on trying to get the best talent in Europe. And like I said, Jordan Henderson has rescinded on his decision that he wasn't going to go. He's spoken to his family and they have decided that they will go to the Saudi Pro League and join Al Ittifaq. He has communicated to his manager, Jurgen Klopp, that he is going to play in the Saudi League. So that's the big news coming in. Now, this development is actually going to cause a flurry of transfers. What do I mean by that? Moses Caicedo was a target for Chelsea. It's still a target for Chelsea. They are dead in negotiations, but it has sort of gone a bit down on the side because Brighton are looking for an offer for around £100 million. Chelsea are unwilling to pay that kind of money. Now, remember that Liverpool also have an offer from Saudi League for Fabinho, around £30 million offer for Fabinho. So, I mean, if Liverpool are going to lose Fabinho and Jordan Henderson in the summer, it means that they have to look for midfield replacement. So, they have inquired about the services of Caicedo, the availability of Caicedo, and the price that Brighton are willing to let go for him. And they are also taking a look at Romeo Lavia. Remember, I spoke about Romeo Lavia from Southampton, £40 million, but Southampton are looking to take somewhere around £50 million. So basically, that is where we are at Liverpool. If they can get some good money for Jordan Henderson and Fabinho, maybe they can invest that money into trying to get Lavia. I don't know if Liverpool will be able to, will be willing to spend £100 million on Caicedo. So fingers crossed on that deal. Let's see what happens. Now, at the camp of Manchester United, the news coming in is that United have reached agreement with Inter Milan for Onana, but they are currently discussing bonuses. Okay, so how they are going to restructure, how they are going to structure the bonuses. That is, because it's 50 million plus add-ons. So the add-ons is 50 million pounds, 5 million pounds. Sorry. So how are they going to structure the 5 million pounds and how they are going to pay for the 50 million pounds? So 50 million euros. Sorry. So that is at the camp of Manchester United. There are other transfer news that I'll bring to you later on, but for now, I just want to go right in and dive into the main subject for this episode, which is to talk about the history of football philosophy, the evolution of football philosophy in Ghana, especially in the eyes of the Black Stars. Now, remember, 3 days ago, there was an extraordinary Congress, 29th Ordinary Congress, the 29th Ordinary Congress in Kumasi by the GFA, and the GFA president, Ket Okreku, came out with some sort of improvement that he believes that Ghana football needs to make, and one of those improvements is our playing style or philosophy of play. And a book was launched titled The National Football Philosophy. It was a combination of work done from coaches to journalists to professionals, technical team members, administrators, and everyone who is involved or has a stakehold in football in Ghana. Now, this sort of engagement that came out from the Congress shows that there was supposed to be a football philosophy that will run through from the under 13, under 15 level. That is where the philosophy is going to start, and then they are going to build up from there to the various national teams. Now, my episode here is trying to go back and see the evolution of Ghana's football philosophy, and why we are currently at a limbo, and has therefore necessitated a need for us to try and get a new football philosophy. What happened to our philosophy from the past? How have we evolved from the various philosophies we've had, and why are we currently struggling as a national team to qualify for tournament, and even when we qualify, even do well? You remember we just failed to qualify for another Olympic Games with the Black Meteors in Morocco. So I mean, the changes are needed, and the team, the various national team administrators of various clubs are all trying to put together a sort of document to try and improve on Ghana football. Now, going right into the analysis of our football evolution. Football began in the 1920s in Ghana, but I'm not going to go into the history of Ghana football. I'm just going to talk about our style of play. Now, in the 50s, it was much at the beginning of the early 50s and late 50s. We started playing very good not a professional league then, but it was organized very well. It was still amateur football in the 50s, but we did try to make some gains by learning from our European counterparts. So, I mean, the then FA president, Mr. Richard Akwe, took the Black Stars. I think at that time it was not yet a fully rudimented national team, but we got a collection of players who were very good. Remember CK Jemfi was there, James Ajay, and then Chris Brandt, one of those players who were very good at the time. They took a host of other players who were very technically gifted and were one of the best in the country at the time. In 1951, to play in the UK, we played a series of teams, like clubs in the UK, to try and familiarize ourselves with how they play their football and try and pick up our game. And we kind of played, I think, 10 matches. We played 10 matches. We lost 8, but we made an impression. The British press nicknamed CK Jemfi the Cheeky Charlie, and also a host of other players. Then, like I said, James Ajay, Chris Brandt, and all those guys also showcased their talent. So now this sort of roused interest among football lovers in Ghana to try and improve on our football. But at the time there were other distractions, especially with our independence fight for independence. So from 1951 to 1956, it was basically more political agenda for everyone. Football was sort of at the backstage, although it was still becoming a national sport at the time. Now, after the independence, there was a much needed revolution in football that was initiated by the legendary Ohenijan. He replaced Richard Akwe as the new GFA boss, and he immediately got into action by trying to improve on the national team. He collaborated with Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the president at the time, to get a British manager to try and come and improve the fortunes of the Black Stars and improve our style of play. So in the early 1958, we hired our first national team coach by the name of Mr. Edward Ainsley. He was a player for, I think, Bolton Wanderers and Stoke City, but he coached also a couple of clubs in there before coming to Ghana. He was given a very lucrative contract, £2,000 per annum, plus a house and a car and other benefits. He immediately set to work. It was noted that he felt that our team needed to go back to the basics, and the basics of football is putting the ball on the ground and playing. He realized that a lot of the players, because we were playing barefoot, they were trying to play the ball in the air. Remember those of you who have watched the movie Pele, the Brazilians at the time in the 50s also tried to, be playing the ball in the air. And there was this famous quote by Edward Ainsley, sorry, the national team coach, that angels don't play football. So he sort of encouraged the players to put the ball on the ground and play. And so he improved our technique, because the enthusiasm was already there, the passion was already there, the desire was there. The technique had to be improved, and then also he taught the players how to move on the pitch, so the rhythm of play, the how to move into spaces and stuff like that. The team improved, and I think during his tenure, we won some notable games. One against Eastern African teams. We had a tour of East Africa, and we did very well against those clubs and those national teams in East Africa. But his stay was short-lived. He was trying to increase his salary. He was fighting for a salary increment, but Ohenijan thought it was not necessary. It was a distraction. It was unfair. So he tried to. He sacked him he lasted for only 8 months. So he brought in another trainer, this time from Sweden, called Edward Sorgen. Edward Sorgen, if I'm right. Edward Sorgland or something like that. This guy came in. He at the end of the day, I think he focused more on the physicality of our game, the physicality and our stamina over technique and tactics. And I think it showed in our first game against the Egyptians. We did very well, winning the game, but Kwame Nkrumah was said to be disappointed in how the Egyptians dominated the team in Accra. They played the ball, and at the end of the day, they got tired in the dying end of the game. And because the Ghanaians were fitter and more had more stamina, were able to win the game. But Nkrumah was still not happy with how we played. So from there, I think a lot of criticism started coming in that the coach Solskjaer was not Solberg. Edward Solberg was not really a coach. They called him a PE teacher, so to speak. They felt that his status was lacking. He didn't have enough tactical knowledge or intelligence, also what they call the scientific football back in the day. He was more only focused on the physical and the stamina aspect of the game. But he did manage to win a trophy for Ghana, the first trophy that was launched by Nkrumah in, I think, 1959. The Nkrumah Cup, which is now, it was a West African championship, which is now called WAFU, I believe. We won against Nigeria 3-0 in Accra and took the trophy. So he did win a game, a tournament, but he was sacked because the Ohenijan felt that he wasn't really a good tactician. And what caused the sack, or what necessitated the sack, was the Ohenijan invited a host of clubs to come to Ghana to play the Black Stars to try and improve our game. He brought in Eastern European teams like Slovan Bratislava, Dynamo Moscow, and also I think one of those Eastern teams. I don't remember the rest, but quite a lot of them. I think Blackpool from England also came to the land to play. But at the end of the day, we were exposed more or less because the tactics was not really powerful. It wasn't strong enough, and we were so exposed. The Bratislava manager called Joseph Emba made a very sharp comment about how we had talent, but we're not really utilizing it well. So I mean, from that point onwards, Ohenijan decided to change him. So after the tournament, he was changed. The coach was sacked, and then he noticed that the Bratislava team were playing a very interesting kind of football, a brand of football that he thought the Ghana Black Stars should be playing. So he hired their manager, Joseph Emba, to come into Ghana and improve the team. Now, Joseph Emba was actually a very master tactician. He had what we call a master certificate back then in the European football. He was widely noted for the training a youthful squad that later became the bulk of the Hungarian team that dominated the 50s. Back in the day, Joseph Emba was a Hungarian manager with a Hungarian football philosophy, and in the early 50s to the 60s, the Hungarian football was at the top of European football. I mean, those guys, the Hungarian national team, they call them the Mighty Magas. They played, I think, 63 games within a span of 3 years without losing a game. They only lost once out of 63 games. So they were solely superiorly dominant over their European counterparts with their kind of play. Now, that kind of football, today we will interpret it as what we call the total football. Now, it is with that sort of play that the Dutch manager reinvented to form what we call the total football that the Barcelona team now uses, calling it tiki-taka. The Spanish team uses it to call and uses it now, and they call it tiki-taka. But back in the day, it was a very vibrant football philosophy, moving into space, patterns of play, taking advantage of opponents' spaces in their opposition box, and also being very penetrative and dispersing the ball, passing the ball. There was this philosophy that the ball moves faster than the man, so passing the ball is easier than running with the ball, and that is basically the philosophy that Joseph Emba brought to the Black Stars. And with this philosophy, we began to dominate. It showed immediately. Results started coming in. We won against teams in Europe. We went to the UK to play clubs in the UK. We played, I think, 12 games. We won 8 out of the 12 games, and we were very dominant back then. We played teams like East and West Germany at the time. We played the USSR and all those teams, and we did very well. We held our own, and we did very well. And a lot of laurels were coming in. I remember we were invited Blackpool to Ghana. We beat them 5-1. It was it sent shockwaves in the football world back in those days. Real Madrid was invited. This Real Madrid team, mind you, was winning the European Champions League back then. It wasn't called the Champions League; it was called the European Cup. They were champions of Europe. They had a full team with the legendary Argentine player Alfredo Di Stefano, and they had Francesc Puskas in there. And these guys were at the top of their game. And Ghana, drew 3-3 with them in Accra. And they were so impressed. I mean, the president of Real Madrid then, Santiago Bernabeu, was so impressed. He had to, concede that Ghana football is really has come of age. And he awarded Nkrumah with sort of a token of his appreciation for the advancement of Ghana football. Now, it showed immediately, because after that, we started winning tournaments. Now, before I talk about winning tournaments, I would like to say that if you are very observant to what I have been saying all along, you realize that all our coaches in the national team have been foreigners. It is pretty ironic that under Nkrumah's tenure, where he talks about the black man being capable of managing his own affairs, we've been hiring foreign managers. But there was a thought to the madness. What Ohenijan was doing was that he needed to build the capacity of the players, of the local management team. He needed to build their capacity to manage before giving them the reins of the Black Stars. He couldn't just hand them over to them without their technical abilities. So whilst these foreign managers were coaching the Black Stars, he sent, you remember I said something about James Ajay, Chris Brandt, and CK Jemfi, who were part of the 1951 Black Stars team that went to the UK. Now, he sent these guys to Europe to learn coaching. Now, CK Jemfi was the most successful of the three. He went to Fortuna Düsseldorf. He played there as a professional whilst coaching. So he learned coaching and got his coaching badges in the Fortuna Düsseldorf in Germany whilst playing. So he became the first black professional to play in Europe, the first black African African professional to play in Europe. And he came back with, high, qualification. He came really sought after, and he immediately was thrown into the Black Stars as sort of an understudy for Joseph Emba. He learned under the great Hungarian manager. So the Hungarian manager in 1960 was promoted to technical director, and CK Jemfi was made the coach of the Black Stars. Now, that was the first time in history that a black man was handed the job as a coach in a professional capacity. Now, CK Jemfi, that right there, making history. And immediately he went into action. He won the 1963 African Cup of Nations and 1965 African Cup of Nations back to back. He also went to qualify the Black Stars for the Olympic Games. The first time an African team was playing in the Olympic Games. We played there in Tokyo. We played into the quarterfinals of the competition. Prior to 1964, in the 1962 World Cup qualifiers, we beat every team except the final game against Morocco, that we lost that game, and so we couldn't go to the 1962 World Cup. In the 1966 World Cup, Nkrumah was protesting the English for some sort of, I think, a Pan-Africanist move to try and put pressure on the English to grant independence to some nations in Africa. So we missed out on the 1966 World Cup qualifiers due to political reasons. Now, right after the coup of Nkrumah, football really began to go down. It was a 12-year decline in Ghana football. But in 1978, we seem to have gotten our acts together. And at that time, we invited Coach Osam Dodu, if I'm right, Coach Osam Dodu, to come in and then take over the team, and he won the 1978 Cup of Nations. And then from there, our football moved to bigger heights. We were still operating on the same old tactical total football philosophy, playing the ball flamboyantly around, using space, passing the ball, letting the ball move, and then also trying to take advantage of spaces in the opponent's position, deep penetration and stuff like that. So our formation was basically 4-4-2 if we were defending, and then 4-2-4 if we were on attack, mainly just the same way the Brazilians were playing at the time. So beautiful football. Total football was the name of the game back in those days, and that was the philosophy of the Black Stars going forward, and has been the philosophy of the Black Stars right through from the 70s to the 80s. Now, when we got to the 90s, football had started changing. The Catanaccio football in Italy was now becoming dominant. Remember the Brazilian team of Spain 1982, played the best football ever by a national team, but failed to win the World Cup. So the slogan that beautiful football or total football is dead began to sink into the minds of tacticians around the globe, and so the Catanaccio was then coming up, was taking over. Italians were dominating world football in the late 80s and early 90s. So it kind of affected our game a little bit. We tried to change things, and then we had this amazing coaches who had gone through training by the Ghana Football Association to try and improve on our tactical and philosophical approach to football matches. And Coach Osam Dudu, Ike Afrane, and I think Coach Henan Adi, Sam Adi, were one of those coaches, three of the coaches that were, put in the various national team positions. And Osam Dodu and I think Henan Adi, Sam Adi actually was the one who, invented the multi-system. The multi-system. The old badge of coaching, CK Jemfi's last encounter with the Black Stars was in 1982 when he won the Cup of Nations. But going forward, we had to reinvent ourselves because football was changing. So the coach Henan Sam Henan Ade actually brought in what we call the multi-system, where we switch from our 4-4-2 to a 4-2-3-1 and a 4-3-3. So in a game, we could switch formations. That was the time that switching formations became a big deal in football, and he was successful with this approach at the junior level. He took the Black Meteors to the Barcelona 92 Olympic Games. Remember, he won the bronze medal, the first time an African country had won a bronze medal in football at the Olympics. So very successful. Remember the players, Sami Kufuor, Eldate Lamte and the likes were all there. And then he also successful taking the Black Stars to Under-17 World Cup in Ecuador 1995, beating Brazil 2-1 in the final. Names like Steven Appiah, Audu Isaka, Edward Bentel, and all those names were there. So he was successful in the 90s. Black Stars were also doing well, except that at the playing was good. The philosophy was good. The only thing that prevented Ghana from winning laurels at the national level was basically personal differences between the players, squabbles here and there, and also problems with football administration. Players felt that the administrators were not paying them well. That was where the issue of, salary issues and payment of, bonuses became an issue with the Black Stars. Now, moving to the turn of the new millennia, football had become very different, and the team needed to reinvent themselves, and so we had this, I think this GFA president, Ben Kofi, suggested a 5-year development plan with a set of play. We decided to be more pragmatic with our play, because we wanted to win laurels for the national team. Since 1982, we hadn't won any trophy for the Black Stars at the Cup of Nations. So the GFA decided to be more pragmatic with their approach to football, and so there came the era of the Serbians. Now the Serbians are known to be very straightforward, straight to the point. They play to get results, and any other thing else, is relegated to the background. And it was successful for us. I mean, we qualified for the World Cup for the first time in 2006 by Ratomir Djukovic coming in, qualifying the team. But unfortunately for us, we had a disastrous Cup of Nations in 2006. In the January of that year, I think we lost to Zimbabwe by 2-1. I watched that game. It was a disaster. I remember the press the following day was all over, spelling doom and gloom for the Black Stars in the World Cup. I mean, if they are saying if we cannot beat Zimbabwe, how can we hope to beat Italy or Czech Republic? Because we were drawn in a group with Italy, Czech Republic, and the United States. But 6 months after that disastrous Nations Cup, we went there to Germany and we did well. We lost our first game, but we came back, beat Czech Republic 2-0, beat the US 2-1. And so from there, our football started to rise again. We were not winning the trophies, but we were getting results as and when they came. We did well with our qualifiers. We qualified with ease, and we represented ourselves well. So it continued like that. The trend continued till after the excitement of 2010. When Milovan Rajovac, also a Serbian, as like I talked about, the era of the Serbians. We were at the era of the Serbians and pragmatic football. But with time, this sort of approach play, started to diminish. We had to reinvent ourselves, but we didn't, and that is what has made us where we led us to where we are now, where we have to ask ourselves what kind of football do we want to play as a nation. And then the GFA is now proposing that we try and find out how we want to approach our football. And then one thing I like to add is that, I've not read the book, so I can't talk much about this football philosophy. But what I can say for now is that the little I heard from the technical director of the GFA, Mr. Reinhard Lippert, is that, we are moving from the era of formations to an era of tactics, an era of tactics and formations where you want to dwell on just a single formation or a series of formations to principles. So what are the principles of play? For example, let me say, if you want to attack, our philosophy or style of football will be determined by this set of principles. For example, if you want to attack, the principle of attack may be the diversion, the dispersion of the ball or the players on the pitch. You know, how to use penetration, how do you penetrate your opponent area, how to be creative in the opponent area and stuff like that. So we're talking about penetration, dispersion, creativity, coordination, and and all that. So there's a methodology of attack that would determine the philosophy that you are going to use, on the pitch. So that's basically what the GFA technical director was talking about. So let's see what happens. Now, I'll go and talk about our World Cup qualifiers. Remember, news came in this morning about our draw it was last late afternoon of yesterday. The draw for the 2026 World Cup in the United States came in. I mean, we were in pot 2, which shows how, the state of Ghana football. We were placed in pot 2. And but thankfully, by the grace of God, we got a group that I can say that if we are serious, we can qualify. In a group with Mali, Chad, Comoros, Mauritania. I think, is it Mauritania? Comoros, Madagascar. Yeah, sorry, it's Madagascar and Central African Republic. These teams are teams that we should be able to beat with ease. But unfortunately, the current Black Star team, you can't say we should beat these teams with ease. You remember the last game we played against Mali in Bamako? They beat us hands down. They lost 3-0. Central African Republic, we should have beaten them, back to back easily in the qualifiers for the Cup of Nations, but we were not able to do that. You remember Comoros, the disaster in January, where Cup of Nations, they beat us 3-2 and eliminated us from the tournament. It was a total disgrace losing to Comoros. And then now you have to play against team like Madagascar. Madagascar are already familiar to us. We've played them in the Cup of Nations qualifier. So these teams are teams we should win. Chad is a minnow in football. We should beat them comfortably home and away. So if we can win against Mali in Accra and beat Chad, Comoros, Madagascar home and away, I think we can confidently say that we can qualify, because Central African Republic will be difficult to beat away, because they are improving. I saw their game we played against them the last time. They did very well. So I don't know if we can beat them at their home, but I think that we can do well and beat them here in Accra or in Kumasi, wherever we are going to play the games. And then hopefully we can qualify for another World Cup. But I don't see Ghana beating Mali in Bamako. I don't see that happening. And even here in Ghana, I don't. To be honest with you, this Black Star team don't inspire confidence. So I don't know what will happen. But basically, that is what I have for you. Let's hope that the Black Stars will qualify for another World Cup. But for now, we need to concentrate on our Cup of Nations qualifiers. Remember, we have a game against the Central African Republic. If we can beat them here, we have qualified. So we need to win that game. So let's see what Chris Hutton and his charges will do in our next game. And then we can reassess ourselves going forward in terms of whether we can play in the World Cup or not. So thank you very much for spending some time to listen to me. I know I can be boring sometimes, but I hope it was exciting for you. Once again, if you like what I said and you like what I do, humble beginnings, but I know the knowledge is there. So let's see what happens. Like my video to support me and subscribe to my channel, Pious Football. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.